One more episode of King's Gridiron Challenge TV. Okay, we have two previews left to go. Let's keep our fingers crossed that there's no hecklers on this one. We are going to be previewing Horsecock sandwiches, and I must talk about 49ers and Seahawk country. Horsecock sandwiches, two-time title game participant, has not quite reached the mountaintop just yet, but he has been close. The way he builds his team, law of averages, it is only a matter of time. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Colin Kaepernick, his quarterback, has got more potential probably than any other quarterback overall in the NFL when you combine rushing and throwing. Ron Jaworski thinks that he could be one of the greatest ever. I'm not going to quite go out on that until I see more than just a few games started, but this guy put up solid numbers. I know all of us should have seen what he did in the playoffs to Green Bay last year. With that kind of ability and limited offensive weapons around him in the receiving game, that is pretty scary. Did lose Crabtree, which is a big part of the offense, especially on third downs, moving the chains. So they're going to have to find somebody to fill that Crabtree role for him. But I think Vernon Davis is going to be looked to early and often for Kaepernick. In a recent trade, he brought over Roddy White from Atlanta. This guy just puts up 1,000-yard seasons and 8 to 12 touchdowns in that high-powered Atlanta offense. We'll go see if he'll keep that up. I have no reason to doubt that Roddy White will slack off anytime soon. Adrian Peterson, consensus #1 fantasy football player currently. What can you say about him? Comes back from a knee injury, rushed for 2,000 yards. And close to breaking Eric Dickerson's record. He says he wants 2,500 yards this year and a shot at Emmitt Smith in 2017. I think he's going to come real close, barring any injury or just wear and tear on his body. Vernon Davis, I talked about a little bit early. This is going to be Kaepernick's #1 target, I believe, throughout the season. This guy's got a chance to be a top 3 fantasy football tight end. Andre Johnson still keeps getting up there in age, but still keeps producing. 1,500 yards last year. #1 option in that Houston offense by far. Hopkins will take some pressure off him once he gets over his concussions. Owen Daniels also take a little pressure off him. No reason Andre Johnson's not going to have another huge season. Ray Rice, again, top 5 fantasy running back. I think there's about 5 running backs in fantasy football that you could swap in from #1 to #5. And I think that Ray Rice is right in there. He could be the top fantasy back. Falls outside of the top 5, it will shock me. Let's go through his bench real quick. Deshaun Jackson, this guy's going to be the #1 guy in that Chip Kelly offense. Should be producing a lot of numbers with deep balls. Bernard Pierce, not only a good handcuff for Ray Rice, but Pierce is going to actually get in a lot of carries, a lot of pass plays this year too. So he's going to be incorporated more into that Baltimore offense. He could be a solid flex play on certain weeks. Kendall Hunter, also backup for Frank Gore, probably the #1 backup. Michael James didn't take it, and Lattimore is going to be redshirted basically in San Francisco this year. So Hunter, he's one step away from being the man there in San Francisco. Also has the Michael James, so it looks like he's got that San Francisco backfield sewn up at least for this year until Lattimore puts his name in there. Vincent Brown looks to be the #1 wide receiver for San Diego this year. With injuries, he's at least going to be able to step up and prove that he could be a #1 receiver. Garrett Graham, they've got the tight end there in Houston on his bench. Now, Houston loves to play with multiple tight ends, so I think that's going to be a solid fill-in for Vernon Davis on a bye week. And then Matt Schaub, another guy that's a top 10 fantasy football quarterback, and being that he's got Andre Johnson to throw to week in and week out, anytime you put Schaub in there, he can go for points. Ty Forbath, the kicker for Washington. Mike Shanahan's offense usually puts up points. This guy should be a solid point getter this year. He was real solid last year. He can get some extra points and a lot of field goals when those drive stalls. Rob Baronis there, the kicker in Tennessee, solid backup to have as well. This guy just keeps solidly producing. Can't go wrong with him on any given weekend. Run down his IDPs real quick. Roman Harper, defensive back. Morgan Burnett, defensive back for New Orleans and Green Bay, respectively. Both these guys put up tackles, interceptions. They can also get after the quarterback. It's going to be interesting to see how Roman Harper plays in that 3-4 defense the Saints are playing with. I honestly think that front seven for the Saints are not going to quite handle it, which means I think Harper's going to get a ton of chances to make tackles, game-saving touchdown tackles in that backfield for the defense. Chris Long, this guy's a solid defensive end. I definitely play him week in and week out. He's going to be one of the top 10 defensive linemen, I believe, this year. Patrick Willis, even though they got Navarro Barman, this guy just makes tackles. He's going to be another top IDP linebacker. Could have the potential to be top 10 IDP overall. Same with Kyle Jackson up there in Cleveland, middle linebacker. Jackson hurt a few years back. Looks like he's come back around to form. All he does is make tackles. That guy's going to be solid week in and week out as well. Ndamukong Suh, that's going to be a solid backup defensive lineman for him. Chris Long's got going up against some good offensive linemen, or on his bye week, he plugs Suh in there and not miss a beat. Then we got Antrell Roll, defensive back there for the Giants up in New York. He seems to be the only healthy one right now, so he should basically get every tackle and every interception for that secondary. Terrell Suggs, Yahoo's got him as a pure linebacker this year. I believe they did that last year, but you can definitely do a lot worse than Terrell Suggs, your number 3 linebacker. That guy gets sacks. He's going to have Elvis Dumerville on the other side, so teams can't solely block Terrell Suggs or game plan, so that's going to free Suggs up a little more than often. Defense is San Francisco's defense. Next to Seattle, you guys can put these 1 and 1A. Also, just depends on the opponent they're playing, who's better each week. But San Francisco, their entire defense is stacked. They've got guys in the secondary that can play. They got guys that can rush the quarterback. That adds up to sacks and tackles for loss, which equals big points in our league and settings. So that's solid defense plug in there every week. And Philadelphia, don't really know how they're going to go transition at 3-4. It's probably going to take them a year or two to adjust. Also playing in a high-powered NFC East. We're going to see how that goes. They got 4-3 personnel, but they're playing a 3-4. Give them a year or two, and we'll see if they can come up with solid defense there for Chip Kelly. Overall, Horsecock Sandwiches playing in the Walsh division this year, moving from the House. He's got C-Unit in that division, which is going to be tough. Let's see who else is in that division. Also, 22's in that division, along with Hawkward 2. That whole division looks to be a 2-man race between C-Unit and Horsecock Sandwiches for the division title. Looked over the scheduling a little bit and everything else. I'm going to go out and we are going to predict Horsecock Sandwiches wins the Walsh division. C-Unit will be coming in a close second, looking for a wild card. He'll be the last team that we preview. So Horsecock, we're going to go out and say he's got an 11-2 season coming up. He's got 2 tough games against C-Unit. No, he plays C-Bob later, and that's 3 really solid tough games. But we're going to go out and say 11-2 for the season and a win for the Walsh division title for Horsecock Sandwiches. C-Unit last up.